Welcome to Real Estate Coaching Radio, starring award-winning real estate coaches and #1 international best-selling authors, Tim and Julie Harris. This is the #1 daily radio show for realtors looking for a no BS, authentic, real-time coaching experience. What's really working in today's market, how to generate more leads, make more money, and have more time for what you love in your life. And now your hosts, Tim and Julie Harris.
And we're back, and Julie Harris. It is actually, I can't tell a lie, it's actually July the 6th, but this is the show for July the 7th. And the reason that we're doing this a day in advance is because we are traveling to Dallas for our big sojourn.
The adventure begins.
We should give, the etymology of the word sojourn is pretty hilarious. Here's what it means.
I don't know.
Oh, you haven't researched it?
No.
Oh, I spent a lot of time on this. It's an old English
Let's
word.
hear it.
It means a really big, damn long trip.
Technically speaking, right? Yes.
So we're starting tomorrow, and please do, or the following day, really, and please do follow Julie and I, and Zoe, by the way, on Tim and Julie Harris, and we're going to be all over Instagram. We're going to be making travel videos. We're going to make a whole vlog. We're documenting this. We're doing before and after pictures, as one of our friends suggested, to see how we all do, being, driving what we think will be 5,000 or 6,000 miles all over the country. And we would love to meet as many of you as possible along the way. We can't be making a lot of, big out of the way trip deviations, but what we will be doing is broadcasting where we're going to be and when we think we're going to be there, where we're going to be staying the night and whatnot. And if you're local to there, message us, and we'll absolutely love to meet with you. And I want you guys to, Instagram messaging is fine, but the best way to get hold of me and Julie, frankly, is all the time going to just be to text me directly, which is 512-758-0206. 512-758-0206. So yeah, if you'd like to meet with us, if you're one of our coaching clients, you're part of our EXP Libertas group, or if you're a book purchaser or just a podcast listener, or maybe an old friend or family member, we'd love to, we'd love to catch up. It would be wonderful. And anyone you're in particular hoping that we meet?
I think we're going to maybe run into Luann Eichhorn tomorrow, possibly. And I've promised her a prototype planner. So we've got several coaching clients and listeners across the country that are going to help with some final edits for that.
Well,
she's one I have in mind. Rick Jansen, perhaps, in Colorado.
We're going to see we're going to see Glenn Sanford, who's the CEO and founder of EXP. We're going to, we went to high school with the mayor of what town?
Oh, Andy Bierman in Park City.
Yeah, so we're going to go to Park City, Utah. We're going to see a lot of people in California. We have thousands of coaching clients in California.
And car friends too.
And car friends too. So anyway, so please do participate and do communicate with us on Instagram. That is where we're going to be, at timandjulieharris.com. So today's show is picking up where we left off yesterday, and we were talking about the daily success game. And I did research this. Julie's got some notes, but I want you guys to write down this URL. It's dailysuccessgame.com. Now, we created this website a few years ago. It's basically in final beta form, but there are some little errors. Like I caught this one down here. View results. Oh. Right? So there are some little grammatical things, but the gist of it is the Daily Success Game website works exactly like the content that we're putting up on timandjulieharris.com as far as for you to download when you're listening to the podcast. And what the Daily Success Game is, well, is your concept, Julie. So why don't you explain it to
Sure.
them?
So again, we're trying to make the tasks that require you to sometimes do what you don't feel like doing and to do it at a high level, which are curiously the same things that lead to profitability and a paycheck in your pocket, to gamify those things. So your daily goal is to earn at least 50 points. The accumulation of real work in real estate is what leads to consistent, predictable income. Remember, you have only, quote, worked when you have scored at least 50 points each day. Each item is worth 5 points. Now, there are 21 choices. You can mix and match. You can do the same point several times to do 5 points and then another 5 points. And we're going to talk about what some of those things are on the list. And I think that URL does have functionality. I think it does work. There's just a few little minor typos.
You have to register, but again, the whole point of this is, a lot of people say, well, what am I supposed to be doing every day? Well, here's what you're supposed to be doing every day. We've given you a list of activities, of 21 activities, and you get 5 points for doing each of those activities. You can do some of those activities multiple times, and your goal is to generate 50 points a day. So conceptually, intellectually, you guys can see how this actually might be something that would remind you what you're supposed to be doing every day. I think when Julie and I were honing in on this list, we might want to update cover these things, Julie. But when we were honing in on what the things that should be the highest priority for agents every day, we did absolutely take a listing as number one. Because remember, guys, and this is something I know some of you accuse us of oversimplifying real estate, but really, if you only get good at proactive lead generation, if you only get good at pre-qualifying, if you only get good at presenting, and Julie's going to say lead follow-up, and I agree. If you get good at those four things, you can be terrible at everything else, and you're going to make a fortune in real estate. And it's important that you understand if those are the four functions that are going to lead to a paycheck. And here's the other thing. I've been thinking a lot about this.
Sure.
And you and I did a series of podcasts on this too. I think right now what we're going to experience for the next 2 or 3 years is going to be remembered historically as the best real estate market in the United States at the very least, but probably globally in the history of residential real estate.
You're right.
And we did a series, probably a month ago, and you guys can listen to it on iTunes or timandjulieharris.com, where we're talking about why there's not going to be a market crash, not going to be a correction, why there's most likely in most markets not going to be any kind of precipitous dropping of home values. Now, obviously, some markets are going to have some outliers, are going to have some sort of, they might have some slowdowns, and there might even be markets in here and there that are going to have, maybe some, adjustment, maybe some industry that's the sole employer in some town in rural somewhere goes out of business or whatever. And then all of a sudden those home values are going to go down because people don't want to live there anymore because they can't work, that kind of thing. But that aside, what we're dealing with is going to be a historic housing boom that will not, it might not even, it will last at least 2 or 3 years, but it could even last more. And a lot of people are saying, well, Tim, interest rates are going to be the big, the straw that broke the camel's back. The interest rates are just one of the many reasons why the market's hot right now, not the only reason. I mean, for example, I know this will kind of scare some people, but you can get a mortgage now for, depending on your credit, with 5 or 10% down. So for the most part, even a $350,000 house, I'm not saying that's not a significant amount of money to come up with, but most people can figure out how to do that, especially, when they consider how much the houses are inflating or appreciating in value. And this will be a time, this is the thing that is kind of, again, a little bit on the scary side, is there is a massive bifurcation that's happening in the country right now between, you can say have and have-nots, but it's really homeowners and renters. There's a massive bifurcation that's going to happen, and it's not going to slow down, and it's going to take generations to catch up. And what do I mean by that? Let's say, and this is something to keep in mind too, if you're renting, by the way, or if you're thinking about buying a rental property, or if you have tenants, you're working with tenants that are gun shy, thinking values are going to drop. The reason that they should buy now is because, for the most part, because of inflation and other factors, market demand. Market demand is really, demographics. That's really what's driving this market. But if you were to look at the amount of money that the house will increase most likely in value by just over the next year, let alone 2 or 3 years. Jules, what was the statistic April over April? Wasn't it? It was like 13 or 15%.
Yeah,
I don't have
a lot of the reporting is between 13 and 15%. Parts of the country are as high as 24%.
Right. So that means year over year, if you bought a house again, a year ago, the average sale price of a home was around $300,000, and now it's like $339,000, if that puts it into perspective, right? Now, don't hold me to these numbers, but that's the generalization of what's happening. And if that trend continues, which most people that I listen to and Julie listens to believe it will, you're looking at that house that cost, say, $310,000, $15,000 in the beginning of 2020 is now worth $335,000 to $350,000. And 3 years from now, that house could be worth $550,000. So what does that mean? Let's say you borrowed, you put down 10%, you bought that $350,000 house, and let's say your all-in mortgage payment was $2,500. So the carrying cost of the house, PITI, was $30,000 a year. That house will increase in value by more than $30,000 a year, thus making it so effectively you lived in the house for free. It increased in value faster and more in terms of actual dollar amount. It increased in value more than what it cost for you to hold. And here's what's really going to happen, and which most people aren't wrapping their minds around. Over the next 2 or 3 years, as homes continue to inflate, and if you bought like 2 or 3 years ago, you're in the right place at the right time. But the amount of money that these houses are going to be worth, ordinary United States, everywhere type normal houses, not fancy houses, but normal houses are going to be worth, it's going to make it so that 10% that down payment that person's struggling to come up with 2 or 3 years from now, it's going to be that much harder. And you're going to see generations of people that are going to be tenants. And that's what's going to happen. This is going to become very much a bifurcated real estate market, bifurcation of net worth of wealth, and it's going to come down to people who own homes and who don't. And it's important you remember that.
That's true. And remember, as that house is going up in value, appreciating, inflation, the combination of both, remember, you still have your down payment in equity plus all of that money that it's gone up by. So your equity is rising at, crazy rates. If you guys are waiting, or you have clients that are waiting for that bubble to burst, they're going to be the ones that are left in the dust, because it's going to get harder and harder, as you said, to come up with the down payment. It's not so much the payment when rates are lower, it's the down payment that keeps increasing. And we also have rents going up, not as hyper going up as the housing prices,
right,
but the rents are going up. And so that means there will be a generation that's probably going to be living in, traditional apartment housing for their whole lives.
Yep.
And those are people with decent income too.
Well, and I take it, I'm 51 and you're 35 plus 15. I'm not allowed to say your real age. But if I remember our parents, your parents bought a house when you were single digits, right? Mm-hmm. When you were like Zoe's age?
I think they bought in 78, and I think your parents bought in like 77 or something.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
their rates were like 18%.
My mom actually got a real estate license. She
Yeah.
worked at Century 21. She did like 4 transactions, one of which was selling herself a house. That was her whole goal, getting her license.
Oh, that's good.
Right. And, but yeah, exactly. Rates were double digit. The house had been on the market forever. I remember
Our house was a foreclosure.
Yeah, windows were broken out. There were roaches all over the house. It needed a ton of work, and we were thrilled to have it.
Exactly, even with those crazy interest rates. But I think you make a good point, is that anybody who is still thinking that, we're just going to wait for the other shoe to drop and everything will be fine, I think they're going to be surprised by this.
And here's the other thing that's happening, and we will maybe get to our topic. Here's the other thing that is happening. There's 1.5 million members of the National Association of Realtors. That's what the numbers believe to be. So we're at an all-time high, which you and I predicted back when COVID started. Julie and I said when COVID started, there were several things you knew were going to happen, and one of the top 3 was more people are going to get real estate licenses, because they're just, all these people are sitting around with nothing else to do. They're going to get their pre-licensing done.
Yes.
And then we predicted, this was probably about June or July of last year, that you were going to not see all these licensees go active because the states were closed down and not allowing people to sit for tests. And now what you're seeing all over the country is all those new licenses that are being issued. And that is getting started.
Just how we've been speaking here, there's probably been another, 50,000 people licensed or
But
something.
seriously.
So, and I was just, as you were talking, I was thinking about, our old travel agent got licensed.
Yep.
One of my assistants here got
Julie,
licensed. Yeah.
Tony, who we just bought a golf cart from.
Yeah.
He just texted me.
He's getting
He said, "I
close.
saw." No, not him.
Oh.
His wife.
Oh, yeah.
And he wants
Isn't
to
that funny?
join. He wants to join. His wife wants to join EXP
There
in
you
our
go.
group. Right. So
And probably all of you guys, I don't know if you're talking about real estate, but when you do, there's probably more people than you think surrounding you who are getting licensed. So, yeah, a little bit of competition there.
Well, so what do most people do when they get into the real estate business? Is they flock to working with buyers. They flock to buying buyer leads, and the buyer lead thing has become oversaturated, or they flock, frankly, to really listening to terrible advice about how they should be building a brand and all this other stuff. And you know what, Julie? Since we're not talking about our topic, let's just completely not talk about our topic.
Okay.
So you and I went on a long walk yesterday, and Julie and I I was explaining, and Julie and I were talking about, because you guys know that we're all about doing the real work of real estate. We're all about doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it at the highest level. We understand intellectually everything about what our competitors are trying to get you guys to do, about branding, about all the other stuff. I mean, you could argue Julie and I have a real estate brand, and we have a coaching brand and all this brand, but Julie and I have not tried to build a brand. Julie and I have tried to build a really great coaching program, and we've done it, that's lasted generations, and it has, that's going to then ultimately basically make a lot of other people have successful lives. And that is what we have done and what we are doing. And so our brand, if you want to call it that, is as a result of us doing decades long of doing what we don't want to do and we don't want to do at the highest level.
Yes, indeed.
But that is not what's being taught. So here's true story. Julie and I are going on our walk yesterday, and I'm talking to Julie about, do you remember who rolled by in a golf cart?
Remind me, I don't remember.
The boxer kid who just basically.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What's his name?
I always forget his name too.
That'll hit me in a second. Keep on
Okay,
talking. The one that just fought Mayweather.
Logan Paul.
Logan Paul.
All right, so Julie and I are going on a walk, and he's nice.
You know why? It's because he has a nice, normal from Ohio name.
He is from Ohio.
I know. So we'll have to remember Logan, Ohio, and then we'll
Yeah,
remember him.
exactly. Well, so Logan Paul, if you don't know who he is, well, I didn't know who he was until he moved here, and but we've met him a number of times now. He is a very nice man. He is. Yeah, and his brother, even though his brother supposedly has a scurrilous reputation, not the case. Very nice guys. But in any event, so Julie and I are talking about this branding, and we're talking about how agents, like we like to gut check ourselves to make sure nothing's getting by us with regards to what we're teaching you guys. And so Julie and I were talking about how if an agent were to get into the business now and stumble across one of our competitors who are telling this agent just to start spending all their time, effort, energy, and money on building an online brand, primarily with social networking. And we talked about how asinine of an idea that is, but also how much that's just essentially another rendition of the same stuff that's being told to people since like the 1960s. It's no different than basically direct mail postcards. It's no different than any of the other stuff that has been sold to agents, have been proven over and over to not work to generate business consistently. So as we are having this conversation, Julie and I, and this is what we teach you guys in our coaching program, there is a place for it. We're not just saying don't summarily do it. There is a place for it, but when you're building your lead generation wheel, when you're putting your spokes on your wheel, read our book, Harris Rules. It's for sale everywhere. Every major bookstore has it. Obviously, the easiest way to get it is on Amazon. It's available on Audible too. But when you're building your lead generation wheel, you have to build the proactive lead generation spokes first. And that's primarily what we teach you in our coaching program because nobody else does. And so the primary lead generation, or the primary spokes would be the proactive spokes that require you to have sales skills, require you to have discipline. And here's what you'll discover. When you do that, when you do build your proactive lead generation spokes first, when you essentially have enough consistent business coming from, we always want you to start with centers of influence and past clients. Start with, don't stop. Then we want you to choose from about 6 different, basically the best lead generation seller, for sale by owners, expireds, notice of defaults. There's a whole bunch of others we teach you. And we want you to call those people, to communicate with those people directly. And what you'll discover is even though people have been telling you there's a lot of other agents doing it, there are not a lot of other agents doing it because they're all doing the wrong thing because they've not known to, for the most part, unless they've stumbled across Julie and I, they've not known to spend their time doing the real work of real estate. They're all doing the social networking stuff. And and again, Julie and I are having this conversation. Logan Paul rolls by, somebody videotaping him, of course. I'm not making that up. And he's having some conversation in his blue Hummer golf cart. The whole thing was, the timing was just hilarious.
Yeah.
But the thought I had to myself was if an agent got into the business nowadays and they were told to do that, how much money does that agent have in their savings account as they're waiting for somehow miraculously their amazing branding from the world loving their... So guys, you guys find out, you can just hear me. I can't even watch the sarcasm from my voice because you guys know I think it's bullshit because it is bullshit. But here's the thing. Ultimately, it's oversaturated. And that's what happens. So for example, let's make this a real simple example. If you guys were in a neighborhood, and look, I'm going to make this clear. In some markets, direct mail postcards work great. And those markets are where nobody else is doing it, okay? If nobody else is doing it and you do great direct mail postcards, and there's a lot of good examples out there, and your neighborhood's not being direct mailed by 5 or 6 other agents, direct mail postcards can work phenomenally well.
And we do teach that in our coaching.
Hell yeah, we do. We've had agents who basically have become dominant in their markets. I'll give you a great example. If you guys are on the main line, one of the most, Michael and Robin Gordon, they're, I think, number 3 with Berkshire Hathaway. They base their business and still do off direct mail postcards. And they have everything about their direct mail postcards. When Julie and I helped them set that up in the late 90s, was the highest, best design, the whole thing. And they have dominated their market ever since, and they keep doing direct mail postcards. But here's what you guys you don't realize. And I'm speaking mostly to those of you who are thinking and feeling obligated to start spending a lot of time, money, and energy on social networking in particular, or even direct mail postcards, is that it's oversaturated. So if Michael and Robin, who are in the main line in Philadelphia, which are these expensive, gorgeous, just ridiculous mansions, if they had decided to start doing direct mail postcards back in the early 90s, and there were 5, 6, 10 other agents that were also direct mailing that whole community twice a month, which is what they do, do you think their postcards would have worked at the same level or worked at all? Of course not. It's called being oversaturated. I'll give you guys another example. And again, not all of you pay attention to this, but you're going to be inundated with people trying to sell you SEO. The war for SEO is lost. You lost. I lost. The big players were the big companies. They won. All the most important keywords that any seller is ever going to use when searching for an agent on Google, for example, have already been long dominated by Zillow, Realtor.com, and some of the big real estate brands. So don't even bother trying. It's not worth it. The war for SEO is lost. And yet, how many, and here's another interesting stat. Julie.
Yes.
How many houses does the average agent sell per year off their agent website? The total number is?
None.
0. And that's according to National Association of Realtors. And yet, how many of you think you have to build a fancy website and spend a lot of money with some SEO person to try to somehow game Google in order to get your placement above the page fold on blah, 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 blah.
Which is also impossible to hold the SEO guru accountable to, because
Exactly.
they're just going to say, well, it takes time.
It takes time.
And you got to maybe spend more on this and spend more on that. It's just astonishing. Nobody is searching for you personally when they want to find a house to buy. Okay.
No.
They're searching for the house to buy.
Exactly.
Which means having the listings
What?
gets the call.
Having a listing.
Light bulb.
Do you guys see how this always goes back to the bottom line truth? And you see how it's self-evident when Julie and I say it like this? And, look, here's the bottom line. Think about it. We want you to get really good at what? Proactive lead generation, pre-qualifying, presenting, and lead follow-up, because that's going to lead to listings. When you lead to listings, the world beats its way to your door. You will have,
I was thinking about when we were looking for a house in the Murphy, North Carolina area, and we were looking in, potentially 4 or 5 different towns. And we would drive by, and we'd see realtor, billboards, and we'd go, oh, that's kind of fun. And then we would, Google, and we'd see a nice little video about Murphy. But how did we find our house? We were looking for the right house for us, okay? And
we were calling listing agents.
We were calling the listing agents.
Right.
We weren't, so that was a cute billboard. We didn't call them. We called the people with listings because we wanted to buy the listing.
So social networking is oversaturated is what we're trying to ultimately tell you. The Logan Pauls of the world are the big winners. The probability of you getting anybody to listen to you and pay attention to you, frankly, from your social networking is less than 0. And so for you to waste time on that and to think that unless you've got a crap ton of money and a crap ton of time and nothing better to do than just basically do as many videos and try to become an influencer to your heart's content. But for the rest of you, for all of us, you need to focus on becoming the agent that people want to do business with because of the fact you've got the skill set. And if you're new, who cares? You can learn the skill set. The agents you're competing against, chances are they don't have the skill set that you can have because they've never learned it, because they've came into the business since 2007 when all the social networking Mickey Mouse really started to take off. And then as a result, they've never actually known or knew but didn't do the effort to learn how to actually become a listing agent. And that's the reason they basically follow do the big brands and I need to build a team and all this other stuff versus what we tell you guys to learn and master, which is proactive lead generation, pre-qualifying, presenting, and lead follow-up. Those 4 things.
Which brings us to the daily success game.
Yes, ma'am.
Those are the things that lead to a paycheck. And not surprisingly, the number 1 thing on the list is take a listing. That has very high value. Okay, sign a buyer to buyer agency, sell a listing, put a buyer in contract, pre-qualify a seller prospect using the script. Same for a buyer prospect. Here's one, set a listing appointment. These are the real things that lead to your profitability. What else is on here? Talking to not just 1, but 5 past clients, actual conversations. Same thing with people from your center of influence, and the list goes on. So, for example, today I might say, you know what? I have been dodging all of these great expireds from the past, 90 days that were aspirationally priced, okay? And now I see that they're coming because I listened to Expired Palooza, and so I'm going to do 1 full day of nothing but expireds. Well, I get 5 points for each time I speak with 5 expireds. So maybe I get 10 points that day. And you know what? The next day, I might just be absolutely tired of that script and conversation. I set my appointments. And now instead, I'm going to, I'm going to work on my buyer list. I'm going to see who I can get in buyer agency. So you can mix and match is the point. Some of our clients are running BPO cash flow businesses, BPO accounts, because it leads to income. But not every day has to be the same. Sometimes these guys get tangled up in their head that, I can't be in that kind of grind. I don't want to be on a schedule. Well, mix it up. Have a game. Gamify it.
But, honestly, I would say get the hell over it. Get on a schedule. That's what I would say, truthfully.
But the schedule should be
yeah.
these items,
but
not TikTok, not, playing around, getting ready to get started.
But the schedule basically is what comes as a result of you completing your real estate treasure map. And your real estate treasure map is your fill-in-the-blank business plan. We talk about this every day because it really is the foundation of your business, frankly, your business and personal life. If you've not completed your real estate treasure map yet, all you've got to do is text 2021 to 47372. Text 2021 to 47372. And when you do, we'll text you back a link and you can download the real estate treasure map along with several other books that we give you for free. So go ahead and do that now. Do not procrastinate. Text 2021 to 47372. And I want to do an actual thank you because I hadn't really been doing, we don't do this as often as we should. We do welcome messages on our main website for all the agents that have joined our coaching program in like the past, I think, 30 days. And there's hundreds of you joining. And I want to tell you that we sincerely appreciate the trust that you put within our organization. And it really is an honor to be your coach, especially in this real estate market. You are making the right move. You're going to learn to do the real work of real estate. And I know for some of you who have never done the real work of real estate before, it's going to feel a little bit like, frankly, like boot camp. Good. Get through it. Okay. Master the art and science of basically being a listing agent, and then you can be financially free. Because the point I was trying to make earlier is this is going to be, someone said this, not me, this isn't a Tim original, but it's funny. With all these new agents getting into the business and with the lack of inventory, and it's going to remain that way for a long damn time, it is going to be the Hunger Games for real estate agents.
Oh, it absolutely is. Because remember, before we had this inventory tightening to the level it is now, it used to be that you really could sometimes thrive, but at least survive off of buyer sides. You know, you would go out, you'd have somebody that was motivated and qualified, you know, they're the real deal. And you would show 10 houses because there were 10 houses to show. And 2 or 3 of them would stand out. And one of them would basically sell itself. And maybe if you had to compete at all, it'd be against maybe one person. And if your financing was better, you'd win. Well, you could lather, rinse, repeat.
But the easiest thing about being a buyer's agent, frankly, is you didn't have any skills.
Because the buyers are super motivated. They're, right. You know, they close themselves most of the time.
Well, you pre-qualify them, you get them down at the lender, you know, and you don't have to have a lot of sales skills because the house sells itself.
That's right.
No one's ever sold a house to a buyer. Don't tell yourself that. That's a lie. You did not sell a house. The buyer bought the house. You just happened to open the door. Yeah. That's the truth.
They liked the house and you agreed with them.
You could have screwed up the sale by saying dumb things when you open the door, which is one of the things we coach you, obviously, to not say dumb things. But really, at the end of the day, the house sells itself. And that's something that you need to remove your ego from it because ultimately, the more you say when you walk into a house with a buyer, the less likely they are to buy the house. Just keep your mouth shut. Your job is to open the door. And if they like it, you love it. And if they don't like it, you love it. You don't ever say anything bad about anything.
You're not going to live there. But even this, they don't really have that much of anymore because you don't have 10 houses to show to anybody. Right. You are going to have to compete. Some of the buyers that would have won in a previous market that were maybe a little bit shaky and didn't have the best down payment, but they could, you know, maybe put a loan together, they're never going to get their offer accepted. So you cannot count on being a buyer's agent the way you could
and it's
in
worse,
previous
too.
Markets.
Commissions are dropping on the buyer agent side.
While we're at it.
And when did we start telling them that was going to happen? How many years ago? I mean, 10?
Yes.
It was so obvious to us that once all these technology companies started rolling into space and they're all trying to squeeze out their money from the transactions, they were going to squeeze it from the buyer agent side of the transaction. And that is exactly what's happening now.
They've said it publicly.
Well, they did.
And they're studying how low they can drive it down.
But the funny thing is, it's not the tech companies that are really to blame for the dropping buyer agent commissions. It's the sellers. It's not the listing agents. It's the sellers.
Right.
The sellers are like, I don't need to pay a buyer's agent commission. They can pay it themselves. And you're seeing, like when Julie and I were sold real estate, the normal buyer agent side of the commission was, in many cases, a whole 2%. We're not talking percents. We're a whole 2% higher than it is now in most of the country. And the country now, we're starting to see buyer's agents to get their offers accepted. They're actually writing an offer on behalf of their buyer, submitting it, the whole thing, and they are cutting their own commission, trying to incentivize voluntarily, trying to make it so the seller's net's better because the co-op that was offered in the MLS, the buyer's agent's willing to work for a fraction of that. That is one of the many, many reasons why you do not want to be on the focusing on being a buyer's agent. And you're talking about all these new agents getting in the business. You're talking about all these new agents that are not going to know how to generate their own business. So they're going to do what they're going to buy buyer leads, play dumb games, win dumb prizes, and they're going to start basically playing the dumb game of buying buyer leads. And then you're going to see the buyer lead quality is going to start to go down. Everything on the buyer agent side of the transaction is going to get far worse. So if you have a choice what you're going to do, you absolutely positively need to focus on becoming a listing agent.
Which is exactly why last week's podcast series was why you didn't get the listing. Because, even having the opportunity in the first place, yes, that's your first win, but you better keep on winning and actually be the real listing agent who takes that listing. So we teach you to be competitive. Our joke has always been, this is not Tim and Julie's halfway house for wayward realtors. We raise superstars to be competitive. If you just want to sell like 3 or 4 houses a year, we love you too, but talk to your friends and sell 3 or 4 houses a year.
For real.
We raise you to actually make a living from this.
Yeah, exactly. So listen, guys, we will be continuing our podcast every day. We're going to be broadcasting on Instagram. Please pray for us. This is a big social familial experience for us.
It reminds me of, what the subtitle of The Hobbit was? There and Back Again. So I kind of feel like that a little bit.
Well, we're all short people. We're like hobbits.
I feel like I need some hobbits to help with our luggage, but I don't know. We'll get there.
Yeah. So we are going to start in Dallas, and we're going to be broadcasting live, doing our podcast. We're going to be doing plenty of vlogging. We'll be posting on Instagram more than anything. And guys, listen, thank you for continuing to make this #1 listened to daily podcast in at least the United States. Thanks for continuing to make Harris Rules the best-selling book that it is. We've had people that are telling us that they think it's going to be the best-selling real estate book for real estate agents of all time. Now, I don't know if that's true, and I don't know how long it would take, but that is a pretty lofty thing for people to have said to us, and I really appreciate it. So read the book, Harris Rules. Actually, I should... Julie wrote 98% of it, so...
with your brain borrowed.
Yeah,
yes.
With my brain borrowed occasionally.
Yes, and I also want to thank our Harris Certified coaches who are doing some Facebook Live sessions for us and handling many of our coaching clients. They're going to do an amazing job for you guys. Harris Certified coaches, so make sure you're paying attention to that.
If you guys truly want to get to the top of the mountain the fastest with the least amount of fluff, with the least amount of hype, why don't you do the right thing, and why don't you hop on over to timandjulieharris.com, and why don't you click on coaching and join Premier Coaching. It's the easy button. Or you can just text the word success to 47372. Text the word success to 47372, and we'll text you back a link to join the coaching program. In the meantime, if you guys need us for anything, remember you can text me directly at 512-758-0206. 512-758-0206. In the meantime, have a fantastic day.
This program has been a presentation by Tim and Julie Harris, Real Estate Coaching. For more information on our real estate coaching and training programs, visit our website at timandjulieharris.com. Remember to tune in weekdays at noon for upcoming shows, and until next time, thank you for listening to Real Estate Coaching Radio with Tim and Julie Harris.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.